What are you stealing?" The hand clamped around the girl's wrist before she could pull away. The broom slipped sideways across the porch boards. "Dust, don't joke." "I wasn't." The ranch hand squeezed harder. "You think this is funny? You think dust belongs to you?" A few workers standing near the water barrel laughed. Another spat into the dirt. "She's got a mouth. Strays always do. Check her pockets." The girl jerked her arm back. "There's nothing in them. Then why are you here?" She looked at the porch, at the crumbs scattered beneath a table, at the broom. "You already know." The men knew. That was why they were smiling. One of them kicked the bucket beside her. "You sweep first. Then maybe somebody feeds you." "Maybe," the girl said nothing. Her stomach hurt too much to argue. She bent down and picked up the broom again. The workers watched her. "Look at her. She won't cry." "She will." "No." The girl pushed the broom across the boards, back and forth, back and forth. Her mother used to tell her that hungry people lost tears before they lost pride. She held on to the last piece she had. Then the laughter stopped, not slowly. All at once the girl looked up. A man was walking across the yard. Nobody greeted him. Nobody waved. The workers straightened. One lowered his eyes. The ranch owner crossed the dirt without hurry. Tall, weathered, quiet. The silence around him felt heavier than shouting. The girl followed his approach. Beyond him stood the barn. Above its door hung an old sheriff badge nailed to the wood. Rust touched the edges. The metal still caught the light. Nobody looked at it. Nobody looked at him either. Not directly. The cowboy stopped a few feet away. His gaze moved to the broom, then to her empty hands, then to her face. The workers waited. The girl waited. The cowboy said nothing. One ranch hand finally spoke. She was snooping around. She was begging. She took food. The girl answered immediately. "No." The worker pointed. "She was after the scraps. After," she said. "Not before." A few men chuckled. The cowboy remained still. The silence stretched. The girl almost wished he would yell. Instead, he studied her as if trying to remember something. Something old, something painful. Then he finally spoke. "Hungry?" "Always." His eyes stayed on her. "Cook." A woman appeared in the doorway. "Feed her." The workers exchanged looks. One stepped forward. "Boss, if you start feeding every stray." The cowboy turned his head. That was all. The man stopped talking. The cook nodded. "This way." The girl hesitated. "You heard him," the cook said. The girl followed. As she entered the house, she glanced back once. The cowboy was still standing in the yard, watching. Not her. Something beyond her. The dining room smelled like bread and meat. Her stomach twisted instantly. The cook placed a plate in front of her. "Eat." The girl didn't move. "You think it's a trick?" "No." "Then eat." She did fast at first. Then slower. The food hurt going down. The cook sat across from her. "You got a name?" "Yes." "You planning to share it?" "Maybe." The woman almost smiled. Around them the house felt strange. Too quiet, too careful. The girl noticed photographs hanging on the walls. Several frames were damaged. Black marks climbed their corners. Fire marks burned but not destroyed. In one picture stood a woman beside the cowboy. In another stood a little girl. The faces were partly ruined. The girl stared. The cook noticed. "Don't." "Don't what?" "Ask. Why?" The cook looked toward the hallway. "Because nobody does." The girl looked back at the photographs. "Did they die?" The cook remained silent. That answer felt louder than words. Later, 2 ranch workers entered for coffee. They didn't notice the girl listening. "He still keeps them up. Never took them down. Can't. Won't." One lowered his voice. "You think he did it?" The other shrugged. "Depends who you ask. Town says plenty. Town always does. Family disappears. Fire follows. Folks remember." The girl looked back toward the hallway, toward the quiet house, toward the burned pictures. Nobody spoke of the missing woman. Nobody spoke of the child. The silence itself felt haunted. When the plate was empty, she stood. The cook handed her a small piece of bread. For later, the girl stared. "Why?" "Because you're still hungry." She tucked it carefully into her pocket. "Thank you." The cook nodded. Go on. Outside, the afternoon had softened. Workers returned to their chores. Nobody stopped her now. She crossed the yard. The old sheriff badge remained above the barn, watching like an eye, like a warning. She passed beneath it and headed toward the road. Behind her, the cowboy stood near the porch. The sight of the girl walking away struck him harder than expected. For a moment, another child crossed the yard into his memory, smaller boots, different face, same stubborn posture. The memory arrived sharp enough to steal his breath. Then came the fire, smoke shouting. The last night, the things he never fixed, the things he never found. He closed his eyes. When he opened them, the girl was nearing the ranch gate. Without thinking, he started walking. The distance between them slowly narrowed. The girl reached the gate. It creaked open. She stepped through. She stopped without turning around. The sound was steady, not hurried, not threatening. Still, her shoulders tightened. Nobody followed people like her unless they wanted something. She touched the bread hidden in her pocket and stared down the road. The ranch felt far away already. The man's silence felt closer than ever. Behind her, the boots kept coming through the dust and fading light. Then she heard boots behind her. The girl stopped at the gate. The boots behind her stopped too. For a second, neither spoke. Then she turned. The cowboy stood a few feet away. One hand held something folded beneath his arm. You forgot something. I don't own anything. You do now? He held out a coat. The girl stared at it, brown canvas, worn sleeves, heavy enough to survive winter. I don't need it. You do. No. Yes. She folded her arms. Why? Because it's cold at night. I've survived colder. That's not the same thing. She looked away. People usually offered food because it cost little. A coat was different. A coat meant someone expected you to keep living. I don't take charity, then don't. What does that mean? Take the coat. She frowned. That sounds like charity. The cowboy said nothing. The silence annoyed her. It always did. You don't talk much. No, you know that's strange. Yes, people probably tell you that. Yes. The corner of her mouth almost moved. Almost. Finally, she took the coat. Fine, fine. She slipped it on. It was too large, warm anyway. The cowboy nodded once. As if a deal had been completed, the road stretched behind her, empty, dusty, familiar. The kind of road that never cared who walked it. She looked at it, then back at him. You follow every hungry kid to the gate? No. Just me? Yes. That answer unsettled her more than the others. A breeze moved across the grass. The ranch stood quiet behind them. Workers watched from a distance, pretending not to. Watching anyway, the girl noticed. So what now? Now? Yeah. You leave. The answer surprised her. She expected pressure. Questions. Conditions. Instead, he simply stood there. The choice remained hers. You really don't talk much. No. You ever get lonely? The question slipped out before she could stop it. The cowboy's expression changed. Only slightly. But enough. Sometimes. The girl looked down. Me too. For a moment, neither moved. The silence felt different now. Not hostile, just tired. The cowboy glanced toward the road. Family waiting somewhere. No, no. She shook her head. My mother died. The words came easily. Practice made them easy. How long? Years. He nodded. What happened? Fever. The cowboy looked away. The girl continued. She kept fighting it. Didn't work. No, sorry. The girl shrugged. Everybody says that. The cowboy didn't answer. Because he knew sorry changed nothing. My father wasn't around, she said. You know where he is? No. You know who he is? No. The girl laughed once, a short laugh, not happy. Maybe he's dead too. The cowboy stared toward the distant hills. Maybe. You ever have kids? The question landed heavily. The cowboy's jaw tightened. A long silence followed. The girl regretted asking. Then he spoke. Yes. That was all. No details, no explanation. Just one word. The girl recognized the warning inside it. Don't ask more. So she didn't. Behind them, 2 ranch workers stood near a water trough. Still talking? Looks like it. Boss never talks. He's talking now. That ain't normal. No. The men exchanged looks. One scratched his beard. Town's gonna hear about this. Town hears everything. Far beyond the ranch, inside a large house overlooking the valley, news traveled exactly as expected. An older man sat at a dining table while another spoke quietly. A girl? A drifter. At the ranch? Yes. The old man's eyes narrowed. Still there? Maybe. Name? Don't know. The old man leaned back. For years he had controlled every important decision in the county. Sheriffs, judges, land deals. Nothing happened without passing near his table. Now a stranger had appeared at the wrong ranch. He disliked surprises. Keep an eye on it. Think she's important? I don't know yet. The messenger nodded. Back at the gate, the conversation continued. The girl shifted inside the coat. It's warm. Yes, thank you. The cowboy nodded. The wind pushed a strand of hair across her face. She brushed it aside. As she did, something slipped from beneath her shirt, a necklace, a small metal pendant, old, scratched. The cowboy froze. The world seemed to narrow for a second. His eyes locked on the pendant. The girl noticed. What? Nothing. You stared. Maybe. She pulled the necklace free. You mean this? The cowboy looked carefully. The shape, the worn edges, the faded engraving, something deep inside him stirred. Not memory exactly. Closer to recognition, years ago a missing person report crossed his kitchen table. Years ago investigators searched for clues. Years ago a symbol appeared in photographs. The same shape, or close enough. His chest tightened. Where'd you get it? The question nearly escaped. Nearly. Then he stopped himself. The words died before reaching daylight. The girl waited. What? Nothing. You keep saying that. The cowboy looked away. Habit. The girl tucked the necklace back beneath her shirt. A strange feeling lingered between them. Neither understood it, neither trusted it. The workers continued watching. The old sheriff badge above the barn caught sunlight again. Silent pond. The girl followed the cowboy's gaze. You ever notice everybody's scared of you? Yes. Why? Ask them. I am asking you. He thought for a moment, then shrugged. People decide things. That doesn't answer anything. It answers enough. The girl sighed. You're impossible. Probably. For the first time, something shifted in his face. Not quite a smile, not quite sadness, just the shadow of both. The girl noticed. There it is. What? You almost smiled. Didn't happen. It did. No, it did. No. The girl laughed. A real laugh this time. The sound surprised both of them. Then the laughter faded, reality returned. The road remained waiting. Her stomach reminded her that one meal solved very little. The cowboy noticed. You hungry again? A little. You just ate. That's how hunger works. He nodded. Fair enough. The girl stared down the road once more. Nothing waited for her there. No family, no home, no promise. Just another night, another ditch, another morning. The cowboy looked toward the ranch, then back at her. You want work? The question came quietly. The girl blinked. What kind? Simple work. Sweeping? Sometimes. That's not a great sales pitch. No, she considered it anyway. Work meant food, food meant another day. Still, she hesitated. Why me? The cowboy answered without thinking. Because you looked cold. The girl stared. That's a lie. A long pause followed. Then he nodded once. Maybe. For the first time she saw something honest behind his silence. Not pity. Not guilt. Something else. Something lonelier. The road suddenly felt farther away. The ranch suddenly felt closer. The choice became easy. Fine, she said. Fine, he answered. She adjusted the coat around her shoulders. Then she turned. The gate creaked again. Slowly she stepped back through it and followed him toward the barn. She stepped back through the gate and followed him toward the barn. The closer they came, the larger the building felt. The old sheriff badge still hung above the entrance. Rust covered part of its surface, but the shape remained clear. The girl glanced at it again before stepping inside. The smell of hay, leather, and dust settled around her. The cowboy stopped beside a row of tools. Brooms over there. I know how a broom works. Good. That all? For now. The girl looked around. So I'm hired? For today. That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be. Then he walked away. The girl watched him disappear deeper into the barn. A few workers were already staring. One shook his head. Another laughed. She came back. Looks that way. Thought she'd be gone by sunset. The girl grabbed the broom. Sorry to disappoint you. The men exchanged looks. One stepped closer. You don't belong here. Neither do snakes. What? Yet here you are. A few nearby workers barked out laughs. The man's face darkened. You think you're funny? No. Good. I think you're sensitive. More laughter. The man muttered something under his breath and walked away. The girl returned to sweeping. Hours passed slowly. She cleaned feed buckets, moved hay bales, swept corners nobody else cared about. The work was hard. The food in her stomach made it possible. As the afternoon wore on, she began noticing strange things. Not dangerous things, sad things, pieces of a life left unfinished. A faded ribbon hung from a nail near one stall. A cracked riding boot sat high on a shelf. An old child's glove rested beside horse brushes. Nobody touched any of it. Nobody removed it either. The objects remained exactly where they had been for years, as if someone expected their owner to return. The feeling followed her through the barn. Maris seemed trapped inside every corner. Not ghosts, not curses, just reminders. The kind people carried because letting go hurt more. Then she found the empty stall. At first it looked ordinary. A clean stall, fresh straw, polished boards, but something felt wrong. There was no horse, no saddle. No signs of recent use. She stepped closer. The wood looked newer than everything around it. Someone cleaned it often. Someone cared. The girl crouched near the gate. A small carving caught her eye. She brushed dust away. 2 initials, Sybil Careful. Carved by a child's hand, the girl traced them with her finger. Behind her, Boots approached. She turned. The cowboy stood there. His gaze dropped immediately to the carving. The change in his face happened fast. His shoulders stiffened, his jaw tightened. The girl stood. Whose stall is this? The cowboy said nothing. She looked around. No horse lives here. No, then why clean it? Silence. You clean it yourself? Yes. The answer came quietly. The girl glanced at the initials again. Who carved these? The cowboy stared at the wood. For a second she thought he might answer. Instead he stepped into the stall. Ran a hand along the gate. Then turned away. The movement looked painful, as though touching the wood had reopened something. The girl didn't push further for once. The silence around the stall already told her enough. Someone important had once stood there. Someone gone. The cowboy left without another word. The girl watched him disappear again. The empty stall suddenly felt heavier. Later she carried supplies toward the tack room. The space sat behind the main barn, small, dim, mostly forgotten. Shelves lined the walls. Boxes stacked high in corners. Old paperwork covered a work table. The girl set down her supplies, then noticed a loose board beneath a shelf. Curiosity got the better of her. It usually did. She pulled the board aside. A bundle of letters rested underneath yellowed paper. Twine wrapped around them. The girl hesitated, then picked one up. The handwriting looked old. She unfolded it carefully. Most of the letter discussed land disputes and meetings. Names appeared throughout. One name appeared more than the others, Sheriff Harlan Boone. The girl frowned. She had heard that name before. One of the workers mentioned him during lunch. Not kindly. She opened another letter. The same name appeared again. Then again, the words felt tense. Arguments, warnings, threats hidden beneath polite language. The deeper she read, the stranger the letters became. Someone had been afraid. Someone had been betrayed. Footsteps sounded outside. The girl quickly tucked the letters beneath her arm. 2 workers entered carrying saddles. They noticed her immediately. What are you doing in here? Working. That room ain't for you. Neither is breathing, according to half this ranch. One worker rolled his eyes. You got an answer for everything. No, Then why does it feel like it? The second worker set down a saddle. His expression softened slightly. Leave her alone. Why? She ain't hurting anybody. The first worker snorted. She brings trouble. The girl folded her arms. How would you know? Because trouble always starts small. The second worker looked toward the barn entrance, then lowered his voice. You know he had a daughter. The room fell quiet. The first worker immediately looked uncomfortable. Don't. What? Don't start. The second worker ignored him. The girl listened carefully. A long time ago, he said. The first worker grabbed his shoulder. Enough. What happened to her? The girl asked. Neither answered. The second worker looked away. The first worker shook his head. No one talks about that. Why? Because nothing good comes from it. The girl waited. Still nothing. The silence itself became the answer. The workers left moments later. The tack room grew quiet again. The girl looked down at the letters. At Sheriff Boone's name, at the warnings hidden between the lines. Something about the papers felt connected to the empty stall, connected to the burned photographs, connected to the daughter nobody mentioned. She couldn't explain it, yet the feeling remained. Objects seemed to remember things people refused to say aloud. The house remembered. The stall remembered. The letters remembered. Maybe people forgot because forgetting was easier. The girl sat beside the shelf and opened another page. More references to land deals. More references to Boone. Then one sentence caught her attention. The ink had faded, but she could still read it. He promised the family would stay silent. A chill moved through her. Family? Which family? Whose silence? She turned the page. A shadow crossed the doorway. The girl looked up. Her grip tightened around the letter. The cowboy stood in the entrance. He wasn't supposed to be there. And suddenly she realized she was holding something he never intended anyone else to read. The cowboy stood in the doorway. He wasn't supposed to be there. The girl still held the letter. Neither moved, neither spoke. The room seemed smaller than before. His eyes dropped to the page in her hands, then back to her. Silence stretched between them. Finally he spoke. Read it? A little. Shouldn't have. Then hide it better. For a second she expected anger. Instead he walked into the room and sat on an old chair. The girl remained standing. That letter wasn't meant for you. I figured. Then why read it? Because nobody tells me anything. The cowboy nodded. That answer made sense. Who wrote these? She asked. People who are dead now. That doesn't answer much. No, was the sheriff involved? You saw his name. It was everywhere. The cowboy looked toward the floor. For years he had avoided the letters and the memories attached to them. My wife disappeared, he said. The girl froze. When? Years ago. What happened? I don't know. You never found her? No. The answer came flat. And your daughter? The cowboy stared at the wall. She vanished a few weeks later. The room felt colder. How old was she? About your age. The girl swallowed. What did the sheriff do? Closed the investigation. Just like that? Just like that. Why? The cowboy laughed once. Because some people get what they want. Who? The family on the hill. Everybody knew them. Their money reached every office. What did they gain? Property. That's it. No. His voice hardened. Power. The girl looked back at the letters. The sheriff helped them? Yes. You know that? I know enough. Silence settled again. The cowboy's gaze drifted toward her neck. The necklace had slipped free while she was reading. The small pendant rested against her shirt. The moment he noticed it, his expression changed. The girl saw it happen. What? Nothing. Not this again. He looked away. You know something. No, you do. The girl pulled the necklace into her hand. What is it? I don't know. That's a lie. The words came out sharp. The cowboy flinched. Years ago, investigators had passed around photographs. A symbol. A pendant. A clue that went nowhere. The image lived inside him. The necklace felt too familiar. Where did you get it? He asked. I've always had it. Always? As long as I can remember? Your mother gave it to you? I think so. You think? She died when I was young. The cowboy nodded slowly. The answer deepened the ache growing inside him. Why are you looking at me like that? Like what? Like you're trying to solve something. He looked away because she was right. Her stubbornness kept pulling him backward toward someone he had lost. He hated it. Hope was dangerous. You ask too many questions, he said. Everybody says that. Maybe everybody's right. Maybe. She studied him. Then asked the question nobody else dared ask. Do you think your wife is dead? The cowboy froze. Finally, he answered, yes, the word hurt. What about your daughter? His jaw tightened. I don't know. You think she's dead too? I don't know. You really don't know? No. Death closed a door. Not knowing left it open. The girl looked down at the letters. Maybe somebody knows. The cowboy followed her gaze. Maybe. Maybe they're still lying. Probably. Outside the tack room, a horse snorted. Yet something had shifted. The conversation had broken a wall. The girl's fingers brushed the necklace again. The cowboy noticed. A strange unease had begun growing inside him. Across the valley, a black vehicle stopped near a fence line. Then another. Men stepped out, watching, waiting. One lifted binoculars. The ranch house sat below. She's still there, he said. And him? With her. The older man frowned. That could become a problem. Back inside the tack room, neither knew they were being watched. The girl watched him hold the letters. They looked heavier in his hands than paper should. Did people stop asking questions, she said. After they disappeared? Most did. Why? Fear. Of the sheriff? Of the people behind him? She thought about that. And you stayed? This was home. Even after what happened? Especially after. The answer lingered. She walked to the shelf and looked at the hidden space where the letters had been kept. You really think the family on the hill had something to do with it? Yes. Can you prove it? Not yet. That's why you kept these. Partly. What's the other reason? He took a long breath. I was afraid if I threw them away, I'd lose them too. The girl looked at him differently after that. Not as a ranch owner. Not as the silent man everyone feared. Just a father who had run out of answers. What was she like? She asked. He knew who she meant. Stubborn. The girl almost smiled. That sounds familiar. It does. He regretted saying it immediately. The words slipped out before he could stop them. The girl noticed. You keep doing that. Doing what? Looking at me like I remind you of someone. The cowboy turned toward the door. You don't. It sounded unconvincing. That's a lie too. He didn't answer. Outside, the distant watchers remained still, studying the ranch through glass and silence. The girl glanced once more at the pendant. If this symbol matters, tell me. I can't, or won't. Both. Frustration crossed her face. Yet beneath it was curiosity, and beneath that something neither of them understood. A connection neither was ready to name aloud yet for either side. The girl folded the letter carefully. Are you taking these back? Yes. Why keep them? The cowboy accepted the papers. Because they're all that's left. The answer stayed with her. The room fell quiet again. Then an engine rolled across the yard. Both turned toward the window. The noise grew louder. Gravel crunched outside. The cowboy rose, the girl stood too. Together they looked toward the ranch house as a truck pulled into the yard and stopped outside. Truck doors slammed outside. The sound echoed across the yard. The cowboy stepped out of the tack room first. The girl followed a few paces behind. Dust drifted around the tires of a dark truck parked beside the ranch house. 3 men climbed out. A 4th remained near the vehicle. The girl recognized one immediately. The former sheriff, older now, gray hair. Clean boots, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. Beside him stood the wealthy ranch patriarch from the hill. Everybody in the region knew his family name even when nobody spoke it aloud. Land, money, judges, elections. Their reach stretched everywhere. The 3rd man wore a county commission pin. The cowboy's expression hardened. Nobody shook hands. Nobody smiled. The sheriff looked past him. His gaze settled on the girl. That's her? The commissioner nodded. Looks like it. The patriarch folded his arms. Heard you hired a stray. The cowboy remained still. She has a name. Does she? The girl answered before the cowboy could. Yes, the sheriff smiled. Good. Somebody should know it. The girl stared right back. Somebody should know yours too. A brief silence followed. The commissioner coughed. The patriarch's eyes narrowed. The sheriff laughed softly. She bites. She listens better than most people around here, the cowboy said. The girl glanced at him. That almost sounded like a compliment. Almost the sheriff looked around the ranch. Just came to check in. On what? The cowboy asked. Community concerns. The girl nearly laughed. Nobody drove across half the county for community concerns. The cowboy clearly knew it too. What concerns? People talk. People always talk. The sheriff nodded. Fair point. The conversation moved toward the porch. The girl followed at a distance. Nobody invited her. Nobody stopped her either. As they crossed the yard, she glanced up at the old sheriff badge nailed above the barn. The afternoon light caught its rusted edges. The metal looked tired. Once it probably meant protection. Now it felt like a warning. The sheriff noticed her staring. Funny thing to keep hanging there. The cowboy looked at the badge. Why? Some memories should stay buried. The answer carried weight. The girl felt it, so did the cowboy. Inside the ranch house, the visitors settled around the dining table. Nobody touched the coffee, nobody relaxed. The girl stood near the doorway listening. Watching, the patriarch leaned forward. We're concerned. No, the cowboy said. We are. No, the man frowned. No, you aren't concerned, then what are we? Curious. Silence followed. The sheriff broke it. You've been asking questions again. The cowboy didn't answer. You've been digging through old records. Still nothing. The commissioner shifted uncomfortably. The patriarch studied him. After all these years? The cowboy's eyes never left the table. Some things don't expire. The sheriff sighed. Still chasing ghosts. The girl noticed something change in the room. The word ghosts wasn't about spirits. It was about people. Missing people, forgotten people. The sheriff looked toward her. What's your story? The girl shrugged. Depends who's asking. I'm asking. Then no. The sheriff smiled again, a colder smile this time. The patriarch watched her carefully. Then something happened. The girl's necklace slipped free from beneath her shirt. The pendant rested against her collar. The patriarch saw it instantly. His expression changed. Only for a second. A flicker. Shock. Recognition, fear. Then it vanished. The mask returned. But not before the cowboy noticed the room seemed to tighten. Nobody spoke. The patriarch looked away first. What is that? He asked casually. The girl touched the necklace. This? Just curious. It belonged to my mother. The patriarch nodded, too quickly. Too carefully, the sheriff glanced at him. A silent exchange passed between them. The cowboy saw it. The girl saw it too. Neither understood it completely. Not yet. The commissioner cleared his throat. Anyway, nobody responded. Anyway, he repeated. The sheriff leaned back. Look, we're trying to avoid problems. What problems? The cowboy asked. Rumors. About what? About old things. The cowboy laughed, not because it was funny, because it wasn't. You drove all the way out here because you're afraid of rumors? The sheriff's smile faded. People get hurt chasing old stories. The girl spoke up. Sounds like a threat. The commissioner looked horrified. The sheriff looked annoyed. The patriarch simply stared at her. No, the sheriff said. Sounds exactly like one. The room fell quiet again. The cowboy's voice cut through it. She stays. Nobody had asked directly. Yet everybody knew what he meant. The patriarch sighed. You don't know anything about her? Enough. Enough? Yes, she's a drifter. So was I once. The patriarch's expression hardened. This isn't wise. Good thing it isn't your ranch. The sheriff rose from his chair. Let's all calm down. Nobody's excited, the girl said. The sheriff looked at her. You should be careful. Why? Because this place has history. The girl met his stare. So do graves. The sheriff's jaw tightened. For the first time, his smile disappeared completely. Outside, the wind rattled a loose shutter. Inside, the tension became unbearable. The visitors eventually stood. Nobody seemed satisfied. The patriarch paused near the door. His eyes found the necklace one last time. That look returned, fear, recognition, mirror. Then it vanished again. He stepped outside. The others followed. Truck doors slammed. Engines started. Dust rose. The vehicles disappeared down the road. The yard finally became quiet. The girl watched until they vanished completely. Then she turned toward the cowboy. "You saw that." "Saw what?" "The old man." "Yes, he knew this necklace." The cowboy looked toward the road. "Yes, from where?" "I don't know." "You don't believe that?" "No." The honesty surprised both of them. The girl glanced up at the sheriff badge hanging above the barn. The symbol felt different now, not law, not justice. Just proof that power had worn a friendly face for too long. The cowboy followed her gaze. "He gave me that badge." The girl looked at him. "The sheriff?" "Yes. Why keep it?" For a long moment he didn't answer. Then he said, "To remember who he really was." The girl nodded slowly. That made more sense than throwing it away. Some reminders mattered, even the ugly ones. The sun slipped lower across the ranch. The workers returned to their chores. Nobody spoke about the visitors. Yet everybody knew something important had happened. The cowboy headed toward the house. The girl followed. Inside, he walked straight past the kitchen, straight past the dining room, straight into a small storage room at the back. Shelves lined the walls. Dust covered everything. He crouched beside an old cabinet. The girl watched quietly. "What are you looking for?" The cowboy didn't answer. Instead, he reached behind the cabinet. His hand emerged, holding a small key. The girl felt a chill. This wasn't random. This was planned. He crossed the room, stopped beside an old wooden chest shoved beneath a window. Its iron lock was covered with years of dust. The cowboy stared at it for several seconds. Like a man standing before a grave, then he knelt. The key trembled slightly in his fingers. The girl had never seen him nervous before. Slowly, carefully, he pushed the key into the lock and opened a locked trunk he had not touched in years. The lock clicked, the trunk opened, dust drifted into the air as the cowboy slowly lifted the lid. Neither spoke at first. The girl stepped closer and looked inside. Old photographs filled the top layer. Some were bent. Some were stained. Several carried black burn marks along the edges. The cowboy picked one up carefully. The image showed a woman standing beside a horse. A little girl sat on the fence behind her. The girl's face had survived the fire. The woman's had not. The burn crossed it completely. The cowboy stared for a long moment, then set the photograph aside. Beneath it sat court papers, property records, witness statements, missing person reports, years of frustration packed into a single box. The girl crouched beside him. "You kept all this?" "Yes." "Why?" The answer came immediately. Because forgetting felt worse. The room fell quiet. The girl looked through another stack. A report slipped free. She unfolded it. The date sat near the top, older than she expected. "This is about your wife." "Yes." The page described search efforts, witness interviews, road checks, nothing useful. Nothing solved. The report ended with uncertainty. The next report carried the daughter's name. The girl's chest tightened. The document felt colder somehow. They disappeared that close together? Yes, that doesn't seem possible. It happened. The girl looked at him. His eyes never left the papers. Years had passed. The wound had not. Together they began sorting everything into piles. Photographs, reports, letters, newspaper clippings. Some pages had been hidden so long they nearly crumbled apart. Then the girl found something different. Several statements had sections crossed out, entire paragraphs blacked out. "What's this?" The cowboy leaned closer. His expression darkened. "Witness testimony." "Why is it covered?" "Because somebody covered it." The girl continued reading. One name appeared, then another. The same family name repeated across several documents. The family on the hill, the patriarch. His brothers, his cousins, their businesses, their land deals. Every road seemed to lead back toward them. This can't be normal. It wasn't. Then how did they get away with it? The cowboy laughed quietly. Power. The answer felt familiar now. Too familiar, the girl continued sorting. Another folder revealed handwritten complaints, threats, warnings, statements withdrawn without explanation. People changing stories. People refusing interviews. People suddenly remembering nothing. Someone scared them. Yes? Who? You already know. The girl nodded slowly. The evidence was no longer hiding. It sat directly in front of them. A generation of silence stacked inside a trunk. Hours passed, the piles grew larger, the room darkened. The girl found herself talking more than usual. Maybe because the papers felt personal. Maybe because the cowboy listened. Sometimes I remember things. The cowboy looked up. What things? My childhood. Everybody does. No. She shook her head. Not like this. The cowboy waited. The girl stared at an old photograph. I don't remember whole years. He remained silent, encouraging without speaking. I remember pieces. Like what? The girl frowned. Voices. What voices? I don't know. Men, maybe? Women? Yes. The answer came faster. The cowboy watched her carefully. What else? The girl looked toward the window. A fire. The word seemed to surprise her. A fire? Yes. Where? I don't know. Are you sure? No. She rubbed her forehead. The memory felt slippery, like trying to grab smoke. I hear somebody yelling. Who? I don't know. Then what? The girl swallowed. A woman running. The room became very still. The cowboy felt his heartbeat quicken. A woman? Yes. Running from what? I can't remember. The answer frustrated her. The memory stopped there. Nothing beyond it. Nothing before it. Only fear, only movement, only fire. The cowboy looked away. A terrible possibility had begun forming in the back of his mind. He hated it. Hope had betrayed him before. Yet it kept returning. The girl noticed his expression. What? Nothing. Stop saying that. The cowboy almost smiled. Almost. Sorry. The word surprised them both. The girl blinked. You apologize? Apparently. That's new. Yes. The conversation ended when footsteps approached outside. 2 ranch workers entered carrying supplies. The same workers who had mocked her days earlier. One set down a crate. You still sorting through that mess? Yes, the girl answered. The worker nodded. Need help? The girl stared. Help? That's what I said. The second worker shrugged. Don't look so shocked. You hated me. We didn't hate you. You definitely hated me. The men exchanged uncomfortable looks. Maybe a little. The girl laughed. The first worker pointed toward a stack. Those go on the shelf. She handed him the papers. No argument, no insult, no challenge. Just cooperation. The feeling caught her off guard. For the first time since arriving, she wasn't defending herself. She belonged in the room. A small thing, a powerful thing. The workers stayed for nearly an hour, helping organize, moving boxes, sorting records. Nobody treated her like a stray. Nobody treated her like a burden. When they finally left, the room felt strangely warm. The girl watched them go. They've changed. The cowboy glanced toward the doorway. So, have you? The answer lingered. The girl looked down quickly. She wasn't sure why. The trunk remained half full. One final bundle sat near the bottom. The cowboy lifted it carefully. More papers, more photographs. Then something folded beneath them. A map, old yellowed. The edges were torn. The girl unfolded it across the table. Both leaned closer. Property lines stretched across the page, roads failed, creeks, locations long forgotten. Then they saw it. A dark circle drawn in ink, large, deliberate. The mark surrounded a single location. No explanation, no notes. Just a circle. The cowboy's face changed immediately. The girl noticed. What is it? He stared at the map. His voice came quietly. An old well. The girl looked again. What's special about it? The cowboy didn't answer. His eyes remained fixed on the paper, as though something buried decades ago had suddenly reached up from the past. The room fell silent. Together they stared at the map spread across the table. after uncovering a circle drawn around an abandoned well. They stared at the map spread across the table. Neither spoke for several seconds. The circle around the well seemed larger the longer they looked at it. The cowboy finally folded the paper. "We're going." The girl nodded. When, now outside, the afternoon sun hung low above the fields. The ranch workers watched as the cowboy saddled 2 horses. One of them frowned. "Where are you headed?" The cowboy tightened a saddle strap. "Out. That helpful, huh?" "No." The worker sighed. "Good talk." The girl climbed onto her horse. A few days ago, nobody would have trusted her with one. Now nobody objected. That felt strange. The cowboy mounted beside her. Then they rode out together. The map rested inside his coat. The road narrowed as they traveled farther from the ranch. Grass bent beneath the wind. Old fences leaned toward collapse. Everything seemed quieter beyond the familiar fields. The girl rode beside him for nearly an hour before speaking. "You've been here before." "Yes." "When?" "Years ago." "Looking for them." The cowboy nodded. "My wife. My daughter." The words sounded heavier outside the ranch, more real. The girl looked ahead. The silence between them felt different now. Not uncomfortable, just thoughtful. Eventually, the road disappeared entirely. Only faint trails remained. The cowboy pulled the map free, compared landmarks, adjusted direction, then continued. By the time they reached the well, the sun had begun sinking toward the horizon. The place sat alone, far from homes, far from roads, far from witnesses. The well itself was surrounded by weeds and broken fencing. A dead tree leaned nearby. Nothing moved, nothing spoke, yet the place felt wrong, not because of ghosts, not because of monsters, because suffering seemed trapped there. Forgotten, ignored, waiting. The girl dismounted slowly. The feeling hit her immediately, a strange pull, a pressure inside her chest. The cowboy noticed. "You okay?" "I think so." "You don't sound sure." "I'm not." The girl looked around, the broken fence, the tree, the shape of the land. Something tugged at her memory, hard, sudden, painful. She closed her eyes. For a second she saw movement, firelight, shouting darkness, then it vanished. Her eyes opened. The well stood exactly where it had before. "What happened?" The cowboy stepped closer. The girl looked around again, slowly, carefully. "I've seen this place." The cowboy froze. "When?" "I don't know." "You don't know?" "No." The frustration in her voice was obvious. "I know I've seen it." "How?" "I just do." The cowboy looked toward the well, then back at her. The same possibility returned. The one he kept trying to bury. The one he refused to trust. Together they approached the well. Its stones were cracked with age. Several had shifted. Grass pushed through gaps. The girl crouched beside the structure. Something caught her eye. A piece of metal hidden beneath weeds. She pulled it free, a small hair clip, old rusty. The cowboy stared. "What?" He didn't answer immediately, then quietly said, "My wife had one like that." The girl looked at the object. Neither spoke. The atmosphere around them grew heavier. They searched the area, slowly, methodically. Near the dead tree, the girl uncovered something else. A child's leather glove. Worn, weathered, yet still recognizable. The cowboy took it carefully. His hands trembled. "Is it hers?" "Yes." The answer barely escaped his throat. The girl felt sick. The glove. The hair clip, the location. Nothing proved anything alone. Together, they formed a picture, a terrible one. The cowboy continued searching. Near the base of the fence, he discovered a rusted tin box hidden beneath loose soil. Inside sat folded papers. Most were ruined. A few survived. The girl helped unfold them. Several names appeared, witnesses, property owners, deputies. The former sheriff, the family on the hill. Again and again and again. The girl's pulse quickened. They were here. Yes, they knew about this place. Yes. The cowboy's jaw tightened. The final surviving page carried a short, handwritten note. One sentence remained readable. "Keep the family quiet." The girl looked up. Neither needed to discuss who wrote it or who benefited. The truth was climbing toward the surface. slowly, relentlessly. Back at the ranch, another truck arrived at the hilltop estate. The patriarch listened as a messenger spoke. They found something. The old man's face hardened. What? We don't know, but they're searching the old well. Silenced, the patriarch stood immediately. For the first time in years, fear appeared openly on his face. How long? An hour, maybe. Who else knows? Nobody. Good. The messenger shifted uneasily. What do we do? The patriarch looked toward the window. Stop them. Back at the well, the girl sat on a fallen log. The discoveries lay between them. Evidence, memories, fragments enough to frighten powerful people. Not enough to win. Yet the cowboy stared across the empty field. For years he had waited. For years he had hoped someone else would act, someone else would care. That waiting was over. The girl watched him. What now? The cowboy looked toward the horizon. Now we fight. The answers surprised neither of them. You mean them? Yes. The family. Yes. The sheriff too? Yes, the girl nodded. Good. The cowboy looked at her. You sure? No, then why agree? The girl glanced toward the glove, toward the hair clip, toward the ruined note. Because somebody should. The cowboy almost smiled again. Almost the sun continued sinking. Long shadows stretched across the field. The wind carried dust through the grass. For the first time in years, determination felt stronger than grief. The girl stood. The cowboy gathered the evidence. Together they prepared to leave. Then something changed. The cowboy's expression shifted. He looked past her, toward the distant road. The girl turned. At first she saw nothing. Then tiny points of light appeared beyond the hills. Moving, approaching. More than one vehicle, the lights grew brighter. Closer, the cowboy's hand tightened around the evidence. The girl felt her stomach drop. Neither spoke. The engines were still too far away to hear. But both understood the same thing. Someone knew exactly where they were. The darkness deepened across the fields as headlights appeared on the road behind them. The darkness deepened across the fields as headlights appeared on the road behind them. The girl stared, the lights multiplied. One vehicle, then another, then a third. The cowboy immediately understood. Move. The girl climbed onto her horse. What is this? Trouble. That helpful, huh? No. The engines grew louder. Dust rose behind the approaching vehicles. The cowboy shoved the evidence into his saddlebag. Ride. The girl didn't argue. Both horses surged forward. The well disappeared behind them. The trucks accelerated. They weren't trying to hide anymore. The chase had begun. The road twisted through dry fields and broken fences. The girl risked a glance backward. 3 trucks, closing fast. A shout carried through the darkness. Then another. The cowboy urged his horse faster. Keep moving. Who are they? You know who. The answer was enough. The girl gripped the reins tighter. The vehicles continued gaining ground. One truck swerved onto a field path, trying to cut them off. The cowboy saw it immediately. This way, they turned sharply. The horses nearly slipped. The girl recovered just in time. Fear hammered inside her chest. Not the fear of getting hurt. The fear of losing the evidence. The fear that the truth would disappear again. A gunshot cracked through the darkness. The girl flinched. The bullet struck dirt several yards away. Are they shooting at us? Yes. That seems important. It is. Another shot echoed. The horses pushed harder. Finally, the ranch appeared ahead. Lights glowed in the distance. Workers moved between buildings. The cowboy pointed. Go. They crossed through the main gate at full speed. Workers immediately noticed something was wrong. What happened? No time. The trucks appeared moments later. Dust exploded across the yard. The doors flew open. Men jumped out. Some carried rifles. Others carried cans. The girl recognized several faces. Deputies, ranch hands from neighboring properties, men connected to the family on the hill. No masks, no secrets. Not anymore. The old sheriff had chosen his side. So had everyone else. One worker stepped forward. What are you doing? A rifle pointed toward him. The answer came instantly. The worker stepped back. The ranch yard erupted into chaos, shouting, running. Fear, the cowboy grabbed the girl's arm. Inside, no, now, no. He glared at her. The girl glared back, neither won. A bottle crashed against the side of a barn. Flames exploded upward. The fire spread almost immediately. Someone screamed. The workers scattered. Smoke climbed into the night sky. The girl stared at the burning building. For a second, her memory fractured. Fire, Egan, running. Egan, a woman screaming. Egan, the image vanished. Reality returned. The barn burned. The same way old photographs had burned. The same way old memories had burned. Someone wanted history erased. Egan, run! The cowboy shoved her toward the house. Not without you. Go! No! Another gunshot cracked through the yard. A window shattered. The cowboy pulled her behind a water trough. The fire reflected across the ranch. Workers began choosing sides. Some joined the attackers. Others stood beside the cowboy. Years of fear finally broke apart. One ranch hand pointed toward the flames. You set this up. A deputy raised his rifle. Move. No, you heard me. No. The deputy hesitated. The ranch hand didn't. He punched him. The fight spread instantly. Across the yard, people stopped pretending. Old loyalties surfaced. Old grudges surfaced. Old secrets surfaced. The sheriff's allies exposed themselves with every decision. The girl watched it happen. People were finally revealing who they were. The cowboy stayed beside her, protecting her, shielding her. A truck roared toward the house. Too fast. Too close, the girl froze. The cowboy didn't. He shoved her aside. The truck slammed through a fence instead. Wood exploded everywhere. The cowboy hit the ground hard. Are you okay? Move! The girl grabbed his arm. Together, they stumbled toward cover. The fire continued spreading. Another barn ignited. Then part of a storage shed. The night glowed orange. Smoke filled the air. The girl coughed. The cowboy looked toward the evidence. Still safe. Still hidden. The attackers wanted two things, the papers and silence. They would get neither. A familiar voice suddenly cut through the chaos. The former sheriff, he stood near the gate, watching, directing, smiling. The sight finally broke something inside the cowboy. Years of grief, years of guilt, years of waiting. All of it rose to the surface. The girl saw it in his eyes. You knew. The sheriff smiled. Careful, you knew. The smile faded. The answer was enough. The cowboy took a step forward. The girl grabbed his sleeve. Don't, he knew. I know, he knew. The words came out like a wound reopening. The sheriff turned away, retreating toward the trucks. Cordice looked exactly the same after all these years. The girl tightened her grip on the cowboy's arm. Stay here. No, please. The words surprised him. The girl looked terrified, not for herself. For him, the realization struck harder than expected. The cowboy looked at her, really looked, the stubbornness, the courage, the anger, the loneliness. Every day she felt less like a stranger. That frightened him, because caring meant risking loss again. The girl waited. The fire crackled around them. Finally, he spoke. You matter more than I expected. The words came quietly. The girl's eyes widened. Neither looked away. The truth sat between them, uncomfortable. Honest. Real. A shout interrupted the moment. Several workers were forcing attackers back toward the road. Others were gathering around the burning buildings. The community was turning, toosing. People who once stayed silent were stepping forward. The family on the hill no longer looked untouchable. The old order was breaking. The sheriff saw it too. Fears crossed his face. Then another gunshot echoed. The sound came from somewhere beyond the flames. The cowboy staggered. The girl froze. For a second, neither understood what happened. Then she saw the blood. The cowboy collapsed to one knee. The world seemed to stop. Voices blurred together, the fire blurred, everything blurred. Hey! The girl's voice shook. The cowboy tried standing, failed. Hey! She caught him before he fell completely. Workers were shouting. People were running. The attackers were retreating. None of it mattered. The cowboy's weight pressed against her arms. His face had gone pale. Fear flooded her chest. Not the fear from the chase, not the fear from the fire. Something worse, something personal. The cowboy's eyes struggled to stay open. The flames continued burning behind them. The night roared around them. Yet all the girl could see was him. She dropped beside him in the dirt and stayed there, kneeling next to the seriously injured cowboy. The girl knelt beside the seriously injured cowboy. Smoke drifted across the ranch. The fire was finally losing strength. Workers moved between damaged buildings carrying water and supplies. Voices echoed in the darkness. The girl barely heard them. Her attention never left him. "Stay awake!" The cowboy blinked slowly. Try harder." A weak smile touched his face. "Bossy. Good." His eyes closed, the girl's stomach tightened. "Hey!" No answer. "Hey!" His eyes opened again. "Still here." "Good." Several workers rushed over. One carried medical supplies. Another knelt beside the cowboy. "We got him." The girl shook her head. "No, he needs treatment." "I know. Then let us help." Reluctantly, she moved aside. The wound wasn't immediately fatal. Painful, dangerous, but survivable. The girl stayed nearby anyway, refusing to leave. Hours passed. The fire died completely. The attackers disappeared into the darkness. The sheriff was gone. The family on the hill was silent. For the first time in years, their control seemed fragile. Near dawn, one worker approached carrying a box. "We found this." The girl looked up, the old tin box from the well. More papers sat inside. The cowboy opened his eyes. "Where?" "Near the fence line," the worker said. "Must have fallen during the chase." The cowboy slowly sat up, ignoring protests, ignoring pain. The box rested between them. The girl helped open it. Inside sat additional documents, party transfers, witness statements, financial records, enough evidence to ruin powerful people. Then she found something else, a sealed envelope. Different from the rest. Older, the cowboy stared at it. His hands trembled slightly. "Open it." The girl carefully broke the seal. A folded letter slipped free. The handwriting looked familiar. The cowboy recognized it instantly. His wife. The room seemed to disappear around him. The girl began reading. The first lines discussed fear, threats, pressure, the sheriff's involvement. The family's involvement, everything they already suspected. Then the letter changed. The girl's voice slowed. "What?" The cowboy leaned forward. The girl swallowed. "It talks about a child." Silence. The workers nearby stopped moving. Nobody spoke. The girl continued reading. The words became impossible to ignore. The letter described plans to protect a little girl, to hide her, to keep her alive, to keep her away from people searching for her. The cowboy's pulse quickened. The girl's hands shook. The next paragraph carried a name. Her name, the girl froze. "No." The word escaped automatically. The cowboy stared. "What does it say?" "No." His voice hardened. "What does it say?" The girl looked up. Fear filled her eyes, not fear of danger, fear of truth. The letter slipped slightly in her hands. "It says my mother wasn't my mother." Nobody moved, nobody breathed. The world narrowed to those words. The cowboy stared at her. The girl stared back. Years of confusion suddenly began connecting. The missing memories, the necklace, the fire, the well, the letters. Everything, the letter explained it all. The woman who raised her had been protecting her, not hiding her from family, saving her from enemies. The powerful family believed the child had vanished. The sheriff had helped make it happen. The truth had survived anyway, buried, waiting. The cowboy's eyes filled with something he had fought for years. Hope, the dangerous kind, the unbearable kind. The girl looked down. The answer sat plainly on the page. Neither wanted to say at first. Finally she spoke. "Tell me." The cowboy swallowed. "You already know." "Say it." His voice failed. The girl stepped closer. Tears filled her eyes. "Say it." The room fell completely silent. The workers looked away, giving them privacy, giving them dignity. The cowboy stared at her face, at the necklace, at the stubbornness, at the courage, at everything he had spent years missing. The truth no longer felt uncertain. The letter removed every doubt, every question, every excuse. The cowboy's voice broke. Daughter. The word landed softly, the girl closed her eyes, the room disappeared, the years disappeared, the loneliness disappeared, not completely, never completely. But enough, the cowboy wasn't guessing, wasn't hoping, wasn't pretending. The evidence was there. The letter was there. The truth was there. He wasn't calling her daughter because he wanted to. He was calling her daughter because she was. The girl sat down slowly. The weight of it all finally arrived, every unanswered question, every missing piece, every painful memory connected. Real. The cowboy looked away briefly, tears threatened. He hated that, always had, yet this time he didn't fight them. I looked for you. The girl nodded. I know. For years. I know. I couldn't find you. The pain inside those words felt endless. The girl reached for his hand. The gesture surprised both of them. Neither pulled away. The grief belonged to both now, not separately. Together. The cowboy stared at the damaged ranch outside. I should have protected you. No, I should have. You couldn't. The answer came immediately, firm, certain. The cowboy looked at her. The girl squeezed his hand. The people who did this are responsible. The words settled heavily. Generational pain, generational silence, generational fear. All of it traced back to the same source, power. Corruption cordis. Not fate, not curses. People, the truth mattered because it named the wound correctly. The workers eventually returned. More documents emerged, more evidence. Enough to expose everyone involved. Witness intimidation, property theft, conspiracy, investigations. The sheriff's role became undeniable. The family's role became undeniable. The years of silence were finally ending. By morning, reporters had begun arriving. Lawyers followed, county officials followed. The story could no longer be buried. The powerful family had lost control. The girl stood beside the cowboy outside the ranch house. The sun rose slowly beyond the fields. For the first time, neither felt alone. The road ahead looked difficult. Public, painful, necessary. The cowboy adjusted the bandage across his shoulder. The girl stood beside him. Close, comfortable, certain, father and daughter, no longer separated by lies, no longer separated by silence. A county hearing had been scheduled. The evidence would be presented. The truth would finally be spoken aloud. Together they stepped away from the ranch and started walking toward the public hearing, where everything would be revealed. Together they stepped away from the ranch and started walking toward the public hearing where everything would be revealed. The building stood in the center of town, old brick, wooden steps, crowded sidewalks. People filled every corner. Some came for answers, others came for spectacle. The girl ignored them. The cowboy stayed beside her. Neither looked away, neither hid. Inside, rows of chairs stretched across the room. Reporters filled the back wall. County officials gathered near the front. The former sheriff sat stiffly at a table. The patriarch from the hill sat beside attorneys. For the first time, neither looked powerful. Only nervous, the hearing began. Documents moved from hand to hand. Letters, photographs, witness statements, party records. Everything collected from the trunk. Everything recovered from the well. The room grew quieter with each piece of evidence. The girl watched faces change. Shock, anger, disbelief. Then understanding. The truth no longer belonged to rumors. It belonged to facts. One witness testified. Then another, former deputies, former workers. People who had stayed silent for years. No longer afraid. The former sheriff's expression slowly collapsed. The confident smile vanished. The excuses vanished. Only guilt remained. The patriarch looked even worse. Every document seemed to pull another stone from the wall protecting him. Eventually, the county investigators stood. We have sufficient evidence to pursue criminal charges. The room erupted, voices, questions shouting. The judge demanded order. The girl looked toward the cowboy. He didn't celebrate. He didn't smile. He simply listened. Justice had arrived, not perfect, not complete, but real. The hearing continued for hours. By the end, the sheriff's authority was gone. The family's influence was broken. The old system had cracked open. The town finally saw what had hidden beneath it. When the hearing ended, people slowly filed outside. The girl remained seated. The cowboy stood beside her. Neither rushed. Neither spoke. Eventually, she looked up. Was it worth it? The cowboy thought for a moment. Ask me tomorrow, and tomorrow still yes. The girl smiled, a small smile, a real one. Outside, the town felt different. Not transformed, not healed, just honest. The truth had finally entered daylight. That mattered. Several days later, the girl stood beside a row of graves. The cemetery rested beyond town. Quiet. Simple, the wind moved gently through the grass. The cowboy stood beside her. No reporters, no officials, no witnesses, just family. The graves carried names she had spent most of her life searching for without knowing it. Her mother, the woman who raised her, the people who protected her, the people she never truly got to know. The girl stared at the stones. For a long time, neither spoke. Then she finally broke the silence. I don't know what to say. The cowboy nodded. You don't have to. The answer felt right. No speeches. No grand words, just honesty. The girl knelt beside one grave. Tears slipped down her face. She didn't hide them. The cowboy didn't hide his either. For years, silence had protected pain. Now silence simply allowed grief room to breathe. The difference mattered. When they finally left, both felt lighter. Not healed. Healing took longer than that, but lighter. Back at the ranch, rebuilding had already begun. Workers repaired fences, replaced boards, raised new walls where the fire had torn through old ones. The smell of fresh lumber filled the air. The girl walked across the yard. The old sheriff badge still hung above the barn, but it looked different now. The symbol no longer belonged to corruption. The town had reclaimed it. A new sheriff would eventually wear that badge, someone honest, someone worthy. The old meaning had returned. The girl paused beneath it, then continued inside. The empty stall waited exactly where it always had. Clean, quiet, preserved. For years it had remained untouched by time. The cowboy stepped beside her. What now? The girl looked around. Open it. The cowboy nodded. Together they removed the old gate, not destroying it, not erasing it. Simply opening it, the space no longer needed to remain frozen. Mirror could survive without becoming a prison. The girl ran her fingers across the carved initials, then smiled softly. The stall remained part of the family story, not the end of it. Elsewhere inside the house, the old letters had been carefully organized, preserved, protected, no longer hidden beneath floors. No longer buried in trunks, the truth no longer needed hiding places. Weeks passed, the ranch slowly healed. The workers treated the girl differently now. Not because of who her father was. Because she belonged there. The difference mattered. One morning she stepped onto the front porch carrying a broom. The same kind she had held the day she first arrived. The memory returned instantly. Hungry, cold. Alone, a stranger. Now everything had changed. The girl began sweeping. Back and forth, not for crumbs, not for survival. Not because somebody ordered her to, because it was home. The morning stayed quiet. The rebuilt barn stood strong. The repaired fences stretched across the fields. The house no longer felt haunted. The mysteries had answers. The grief had names. The silence had purpose. The cowboy stood nearby watching. The girl finished sweeping and leaned on the broom. For a moment neither spoke. Then she looked up. Dad? Yeah, I'm staying. The cowboy nodded once. Good. The girl smiled. The porch felt steady beneath her feet. The ranch felt steady around her. Not perfect, never perfect, but hers. The morning sun warmed the boards. The broom rested in her hands. The man who had once been a stranger remained beside her. Father and daughter, together, at peace with what had happened, ready for what came next. And for the first time in her life, she knew exactly where she belonged.